Hi there, I'm Cathi Barker from Software Solutions, and you're looking at one of a collection of videos that accompanies my Microsoft Excel Level 3 Data Manipulation course. Now, this particular video is looking at formatting a list as a table. So we've got this list in a sheet called Targets. Now, I want to keep a pristine copy of this list, so I'm going to duplicate this sheet. If I hold the Control key and I drag the sheet name Targets to the right, and drop it on database, then let my mouse go and then let the control key go. When you hold the control key and you drag a sheet to the right, you end up making a duplicate as soon as you let the mouse go. And the control key is the last thing that you let go. Okay, so we've got targets 2 here. I'm just going to double click its name, press the right arrow and backspace the last 3 characters off its name. And I'm going to call this targets table. Okay, now I'm just going to click an A1 so I know that I'm sitting in the list. And what I want to do is look at on the Home tab in the ribbon, this button here called Format as a Table. And that's what this video is about. When you click this button, you get a drop down of light, medium, and dark styles. And unfortunately, when you roll over them, you don't get a preview of what they look like with your data. So you're sort of in the dark a little bit as to which one to choose, and you just have to go by what you can see in this gallery. Now, each one of these styles in this gallery has got a number. So this is blue, table style, medium 9. Whereas this is blue, table style, or ice blue, table style, light 16. So they are numbered. I'm just going to go for this option here maybe. I'm going to go for purple medium 19. So when I click that option, it then with the use of a wiggle around the outside of my data and with this little dialog box, wants to verify that this format is to be applied to the range A1 to H271. That's actually correct. And my data does have headers. So I'm going to go OK. Immediately the style's applied and I can just click to see it more clearly. And this is the purple style that I chose. Now, if I then look up in the ribbon, I see that I've got an extra tab now called Table Design. And that is because I formatted this list as a table and I'm sitting in the list. The moment I click out to the right here, maybe in column J, then I'm sitting outside the table and the table design will disappear from the ribbon because I'm out of context. So if you want to see your table design tab, you literally have to click back inside the table and then table design comes back up. Now, if you then decided that the style that you chose wasn't what you're after, you can go back to the gallery of styles and you can change your mind. And I can actually roll over them and see what they look like. So I might actually go for this medium 6 look. Okay, so there's your table styles. So one of the benefits immediately we can see from formatting as a table is that it saves you having to do the formatting manually. It just applies a style that's nice and consistent. The other benefit is it turned on the filter straight away. If I go back to the targets sheet that we duplicated, the filter was definitely turned off. But when you format it as a table, the filter immediately comes back on because it thinks it's a list in a table, and one of the most common things you're going to do with that list is filter it. But you can turn off and turn on the filter just by hitting this button here on your table design tab, which means that you're sitting in the list. So you can turn on and turn off the filter with this option here. So that's another benefit. Another benefit of formatting as a table is if I use my wheel on my mouse and I scroll down, you'll always see the column headings. They may not be colored, but you'll always see the column headings. So as I scroll down, I can see this is still first name, last name, region, department. So that's another benefit of formatting as a table, is that you'll always see the headers. Another benefit is the style that I chose has alternated the color for each row, which makes it really easy for people to read across a row. So they call these banded rows. But if my readers tend to read down, then maybe I want to turn off the banded rows with this tick and turn on the banded columns. And so this assists my readers with reading downwards. So decide if you want banded columns or banded rows or both. The other benefit of formatting as a table is you can control the look of the first column and the last column with these two tick boxes. If I tick this one, first column, it accentuates the first column. And because of the style I chose, which is this one here, medium 6, it just uses bold. But if I chose a different style, perhaps this style here, medium 20, then first column doesn't just apply bold, it also applies a background color to accentuate the first column. And last column accentuates the last column again with bold, a background color, and it even changes the font color. So that's what those two items do. The filter we looked at, the banded columns we looked at, and the banded rows we looked at. The header row is when you want to turn off the column headings. So if I untick that, your column headings will disappear. I don't have a lot of use for that. But the total row is definitely useful. If I tick this option, I'm actually thrown to the foot of my table. And at the foot of actual, Excel has taken the liberty to actually sum up the actual values. And it's used a drop down here. If I hit this drop down, I can see that sum has been selected. I could change it to average, and now it's averaging my actual values. And we have 1495 and a third that we discovered in the earlier video. But if I change it back to sum and decide to total or to sum the actual values, that's great. If I then want to average the target values, I'll hit the drop down and choose average. And if I then want to count the last names, I'll click at the foot of last name and I'll choose the function count. And so we have 270 records. So the total row you can turn off and you can turn on. It remembers your last choices, and you can change them simply by hitting the drop down. Really handy. But I think what's important as well is the fact that when I'm sitting at the foot of actual where I said I wanted it to sum the actual values, and maybe if I double click it, notice it didn't use the sum function. It actually used the subtotal 109 function. I'm going to press escape and think, well, that's interesting. And when I asked it to average the target values, let me double click this, it didn't use average, it used subtotal 101. And when I go over to here and I double click this, it used subtotal 103. There is a function that's been with Excel for quite some decades called subtotal. And if I click on a blank cell just to explore it, equals SU, there's subtotal there. And it says returns a subtotal in a list, which is what we're talking about, or a database or a table. List, database, and table seem to be terms that get easily interchanged in Excel. I'm going to double click subtotal, and here's where the number is. 1 means average, 2 means count, 4 means max, 5 means min. And as you scroll down, then we have 101 for average, 104 for max, and 105 for min. So what's the difference between 1 to 11 and 101 to 111? I'm going to click this blue hyperlink on the word subtotal. That is how you ignite the help. I'll bring the help into view so you can actually see what we've got here. And here's an explanation about why you would choose, say, 1 over 101. If you choose 1, it will average that column and it will include hidden rows. If you choose 101, it will average and it will ignore any hidden or filtered rows. So that's really handy. So I'm going to close this help. So what this is basically saying is if I turned around now, let me escape out of that, and sat in my list and hit the drop down and went to the search option and typed TE and pressed enter to filter out T-Bookie, it's only counting, averaging and summing the visible rows, not the hidden rows, because it's 109 and not 9, and 101 and not 1, and 103 and not 3. 3 would include the hidden rows. 103 does not include the hidden rows. So it's only counting what's visible. Really, really handy. So my suggestion is explore that subtotal function a little bit more, because if you're working with lists, it can be really exceptionally handy. Okay, what else do I need to tell you? I also need to tell you about the fact that when I go to table design here, so we've looked at these options, we've looked at these options, It's named this table. It's named this table, table 1. I'm going to click in this list here and actually call it targets table. Now, I'm not allowed spaces. When I press enter, this table is now named targets table. So that'll make sense when we watch the third video, which talks about named ranges. So do come back for that. Now, the other thing is you can resize the table if the table width or height has increased or decreased. You can actually alter the size of the table using that. And the other thing that we often want to do is we want to put the table back to just being a normal range. Sometimes we don't want it to be formatted as a table. We just want it to be a normal list, and we want this table design tab to disappear. There are certain things that Excel won't let you do if the list has been formatted as a table. So how do you get it to go back to being a normal list? That's this button here, convert to range. If I rest on it, the screen tip actually says this button will convert this table back to a normal range of cells, but all the data is preserved and all the formatting is preserved, and even the formulas will be preserved. So let's try it. Convert to range. Do you want to convert the table to a normal range? Yes, I do. Immediately the table design tab has disappeared, even though I'm sitting in the table. It is no longer technically formatted as a table, but the legacy is the formatting stays. Notice as I scroll down, the column headings don't stay locked in, but you have got the alternating banded rows. And as I go to the foot of the list, you'll see you've actually still got the subtotal functions at play. But they're looking at ranges now rather than column heading. So this is subtotaling this range, and this is subtotaling this range. If I strip this back, let me just go undo, and just take it back to being a normal list. And I'll know that when table design disappears. You've got 100 levels of undo, so just keep going undo. Boom, we're back to a normal list. If I want to format this list as a table quickly, I need to share with you there is a shortcut key, and that's Control T, which is pretty easy to remember. If I'm sitting in this list, for example, and I go Control T and I go OK, boom, it's formatted as a table. That's really important, especially if you do get to do some of the Power BI courses that we offer. If you do move into Power BI for reasons of data compression, it's always best to format a list in Excel as a table before you bring it into Power BI or Power Query or Power Pivot. So having that shortcut key, Control T, is really handy to be able to quickly format a list as a table. And this table now is called Table 2. I could actually rename it Targets Table again and press enter, and it's back to being the targets table. So handy wee button on the home tab called Format as a Table, really useful and popular amongst those who work with large lists. And I hope you've liked this video. Please like or subscribe, and please come back to the next video, and I'll see you soon. Okay, thank you. Bye.